everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Parallel League podcast. Today is a very special episode because our very own Mookah has ascended the ranks into being an official game designer for Parallel. And so this episode is going to be talking to Veen, senior game designer and TCG lead, and Mookah about the Parallel design and how he got to this point and everything. So I'm pretty pumped. I'm gonna lead this one and give him the hard hitting questions, also from the community as well, because we pulled you guys. But before we get into that, we want to go over some announcements real quick. So the second Prime Open is April 26th. There are actually two qualifiers. One that is better for East Coast and West Coast time. So you can always go to parallelleague.game to look at the schedule. And then the broadcast is going to be on Sunday, the 27th. So make sure that you don't miss that. And I'm actually going to let Mookah take over some of the announcements for timeline here, as well as Veen, if you want to jump in for some extra announcements about things happening in the game. So take it away.
Yeah, sure. So we have some timeline stuff that we wanted to communicate. So the 0.65 patch is going to be hopefully coming out around mid-May, and the shotgun patch that has been communicated a ton of times will be mid to late May as well. Not in the same patch, but a little bit after that, shortly following it. And then on the other end, we have some announcement changes that we wanted to communicate from Parallel and with Echelon on the battle pass and glints. There are some system changes. We figured it'd be a good place to communicate here just so more people can see it. So the first one is the battle pass. If you play with Web3 assets to earn, there is now a modifier coming in if you bought the battle pass or not. So the pool of rewards that you get from playing with Web3 assets, they are now being split between battle pass purchasers and non-purchasers. So the bulk of it is going to be shifted to battle pass purchasers. It's an 80-20 split. So if you get the battle pass, you are getting the larger chunk of the pool going forward. And if you don't get it, you're only going to get part of that 20% pool. So if you get the battle pass, you're going to get further rewarded for purchasing it. And the other change is glints are going to be changed in how they can be purchased in the future. They're going to they're only going to be purchasable with dollars going forward. Not right now, but in the future, they will be changed to be purchasable with only dollars, not with Prime. The date for that will be communicated so that you do not, you have a chance to get it still. Like, it's not going to be like you watch this, then, you can't get any more glints. So we're going to still provide that opportunity. But those are two changes that we just wanted to highlight here before we started the podcast, so no one missed out.
Yeah, do you want to just give a quick little insight onto why those changes? I
Yeah.
think that, yeah, Veen, take it away. Go ahead.
So, the changes to the patches are just a reality of development. We wanted 6.5 to come early May, and we wanted the shotgun patch to come after that. But we've had a couple of resources move around onto different projects, and we've had a couple people join the company, couple people leave the company, and with change and with work comes the delays. And so, what we want to make sure is that when we release it, it's as good as we wanted it to be. We've already pulled some features out of it, so a lot of the we thought all of the UI screens would be in and included, but prompts got moved. But still, even without prompts, it's going to take a little bit extra time to make sure that it's all buttoned up, all tested, all as stable as we can get it. And so we wanted that to be something we didn't have to rush. So we're saying like mid-May, probably like second weekish time. And then that necessarily pushed out Shotgun because Shotgun comes after it.
Yeah.
As far as changing the battle pass and the glints are concerned, the battle pass change is just to encourage people to participate in the ecosystem and be part of purchasing like our main non-set product. And we feel that people who have access to the newest cards have access to the premium battle pass and are the most engaged. Our echelon chooses to reward them the most. And then the final change, glints are now more accessible, and that's also better for mobile platforms. And that's also just a more intuitive way to access the core of like it is our core in-game currency.
Awesome. And that just made me realize I think global launch for Brazil, right? I believe is it tomorrow? I think so. It's I think it might be the 24th, but it's this week,
I want
I
to see if that's
think.
moved, but I'll take a look at it. Swish has the calendar. I'll bring that up
Cool.
as well.
But no, I really like the changes. I think the battle pass is a great system, and also I think we got word that like some lore is going to get dropped. Like last month, we had Raven. We learned a little bit more about that character, and so I definitely think making these changes is a good idea. All right, well, Muka, you have, I said it earlier, but you have ascended the ranks. Basically, you've told the story that in the beginning, you went around basically just who can I coach? How can I be useful in the scene? Right. And then became caster, then podcast host. And now you're officially on the design team for Parallel. So I'm going to just ask like a basic, how does that feel? And then I'll grill you a little bit more.
Yeah, it's been a crazy ride. I don't even know particularly how I got here. Sometimes, like there was a point earlier this week where I was just scrolling through DMs and I was like, how did this all happen again? It's been a process. I mean, like you said, I started playing this game and I just wanted to help anybody. So I coached people. I showed I was good at the game. Then I streamed a little bit. People that came during the alpha knew that I streamed the game.
True.
I did in houses. From there, I got from making content. That's how I uh, got even more involved with like Exile, who's the bond that I was like kind of like closely working with. I became a coach for them. Those guys helped really get me started in Parallel even before streaming. Then along that process, I met Kalos and Gon, and yeah, just like I mean, me talking about design with them was all the way up until like it started late 2023. So it's been quite some time where I've been, I'm not a part of the team, but I've just given my thoughts. And
Mhm.
it's been somewhat reciprocated, like, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And that's been a very cool channel to kind of had. And then as time passed on, I was told there was an opportunity. And I always was the guy that was like, hey, if there's an opportunity, let me know. And Veen gave me this crazy test to take, and yeah, from there I'm here. I don't know, like it feels very surreal. I would not have a guess that I would be in this place given my career like trajectory like 2-3 years ago. It's a total
Mhm.
change up, but it's been very rewarding. It's been a lot of fun. Like my first day, official day, was like Veen telling me we're working on the set after
The new
Deception.
expansion. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I was like first day like okay, I'm already going to have to like put cards in this document that like, may show up in someone's hands, and like I was very nervous to do that. But now we've done a lot since then. So I'm very happy. The first showcase of my work will technically be like the shotgun patch as a whole.
Yeah.
But I helped a little bit with the tuning that comes in the balance patch that's in 0.65. So yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's almost been 2 months now of
Yeah.
officially working within Parallel, but it's been crazy the amount of stuff that we've gotten to do.
Yeah, we've been joking, you generally directed people to at Mr. Gone or Fitch for complaints, and now you direct your complaints to Mookah, leave Veen
Yeah,
out of this, and he'll take the hit.
you can come to me
But
with complaints, but not leaks. That I've
okay, ooh,
affirmed that I am
yeah,
not taking a role with leaks.
that's fair. Veen, I am curious, what do you think makes a good game designer, and what did you identify in Mookah in the process of interviewing him?
Good question. What makes a good game designer is a problem-solving mindset, a penchant for creativity, the ability to have your ideas both accepted and rejected gracefully,
Mm,
and an ability to just being a lover of games. Um, and I think that Mooka has that in spades. What put him on my radar at first was first Koji told me about him, and I would watch the podcast, and Koji was a big fan, and I knew that I needed design help. Part of the reason that so much stuff has happened since Mooka joined is I just needed another person, and now that I have another
mhm,
person, it's very easy to start speeding along a lot of these projects. Um, but I wanted someone with an eye on the competitive scene because I was new to Parallel. I didn't have the whole history. I didn't have the inroads with a lot of the pros. I wasn't a coach. I wasn't someone who was at the top tiers of competition, and I needed someone with that angle specifically, like someone who had an insight into that side of the player base, but also had the game design chops to handle it. And so, like as he mentioned, he actually got the test, as did a bunch of others, including former coworkers of mine, former senior game designers, people who I thought would do very well. Um, and people did do well, but the person who did the best was Mookah. And so it was impressive for someone who didn't have a game design background to be able to outscore certain game designers at at a effectively brand new job. So I was impressed, and I brought him on. I've continued to be impressed. I feel like we made the right call, and I can't wait for you guys to see some of his first work. Even though Shotgun Patch is the first thing that you'll see of his, the first stuff that we did, the stuff in Haven after Deception is, I think, some of his best work. And I think that's when,
Amazing.
like, I know that the hype for Deception is off the chart, and I want the hype for Haven to be even crazier. But we're talking about quite the far future at this point.
I love the name Haven. By the way, I know it's already been announced, but I'm super super excited. Tell me about this test a little bit, because I'm sure that there's some people listening that are probably aspiring game designers too, and maybe don't give them the full thing, but a little
Sure.
insight onto what you'd be looking for, and just in other game companies as well.
Yeah, well, so speaking of other game companies, this test is basically a hard ripoff of the Marvel Snap test that I took
Mhm.
from Glenn Jones. Because Glenn, I was like, I think that your test is incredible. What do I do to make it better? He's like, you can just use this one. Like, okay, great. So I
Okay.
changed, instead of the exact same test, which was use a different IP and make cards for our game. I got to use a different IP and make cards for our game. I picked Marvel because he couldn't pick Marvel because he's Marvel Snap, but I thought it was funny that I could pick Marvel. So the first section is create a bunch of Marvel cards for Parallel. The second section is come up with a mechanic. The third section is I give you a bunch of cards. Some are good, some are bad. And you tell me what's good and bad about them, and tell me which ones you should release and what shouldn't release. And section four is I give you a broken game that everyone knows about, and I tell you to fix the game. And the four sections are designed to do different things. The first one is literally, can you take the concept of a well-known character or something that's resonant in an IP that you understand and translate it into parallelisms? Like, can you
Mhm.
make it sound like a parallel card? Can you make it feel like a parallel card? Does it convey the idea of what you were going for from the Marvel IP or from whatever IP you pull from? Can you do the work of a designer? Um, the second section is designed to be, can you do the work of a senior designer? Like, can you come up with a mechanic that could handle the entire a set being hung on its shoulders? Like, can you come up with something that's not just one card, but is a mechanic that multiple cards could use, perhaps an entire parallel could use, perhaps an entire set could use? The third section is whether or not you can do the work of a balance tester or an FFLer or a designer. I say FFLer like it's something everyone would know. Uh,
I'm like,
it's
can
the
can you
it's
explain
from
that?
it's that's magic terminology from forever ago. I'll explain what that means. But um, the idea is like the future league is what Magic used to call it when they would play with decks of cards that weren't released yet. So the idea is there's a bunch of people internally who know what cards are coming out. They know what's in Deception. They know what's in Haven. And so when we're making talking about balance changes, it's like balance changes knowing the future. And so, like, could you, in the third section of the test, I'm asking you to give me feedback on my design. So tell me that my ideas are bad. Tell me that some of my ideas are good, but also give me a stack ranking of what to release and where. And that's really asking, like, can you do the nitty gritty? Like, can you do not just the fun part of the job, but like the crunchy part of the job? Can you do the part that involves communication and balancing ideas and balancing people's ego and balancing the health of the game, things like that? And then the fourth section is like, how senior are you? Like, can you take a game that's broken and fix the game entirely? Like, can you take something that has systemic flaws and find a way to systemically fix it? It's mostly asking, like, how far along in your career are you? And Mookah did very well on the parts that I needed him to do well on, and unsurprisingly was not super senior, but that's exactly what I needed from the role. I needed someone who could do the creative parts of the job, give me mechanical feedback, evaluate cards, and generate wonderful stuff, and that's exactly what we got.
Yeah, my follow-up, you kind of answered, but I was gonna ask Muka, like, where do you think you shine the most? And, where would you look to improve? And what have you enjoyed the most?
Yeah.
And
Uh, I think it's a good point to talk about, like, I guess some of the early pitfalls I had learning design too. Just because I took
Mhm.
the test didn't mean I knew how to do everything, of course. And a lot of my early designs for cards, so like Haven has a certain amount of cards. I forget exactly how many cards, but I designed way more than that for Haven. And a lot of them were just like crossed off, like, nope, nope, can't do this, can't do this. And a lot of that was just like me wanting to. I came from a competitive background, so I initially was making cards that were competitive now, like, and
Mhm.
I wasn't
Right.
looking towards the future. The way I look at it now and what I've learned is that when you're designing, it's almost like you're learning to drive a car. Like, you don't look right in front of your car when you're driving, right? You look further down the
Yeah.
road, so you're not like steering off the lanes. So that's the same way I was looking right ahead, and I'm like, I was making so many cards like 3 costs or 4 costs because in parallel they're so relevant. But given certain design things that we've done already that will happen in the future, that doesn't mean it always has to exist that way. So there was definitely a lot of pitfalls in that way that I had to learn to grasp and understand. On top of that, man, yeah, like, I've definitely gotten better at doing it given the short amount of time, but there's just a lot of iteration. Like, when you are doing the creative thing, you can do anything. Like, you can really,
Mhm.
like, there was a meeting that I was in and someone suggested a card change and I was like, "Wait, we can say that? Like, we can do that?" And I don't want to give it away cuz who knows, maybe we do something like that in the future, but like, it opened my eyes that you can get really creative. But because of that, you also sometimes get carried away and ignore the constraints that can happen. Like, your game can't necessarily facilitate that thing right now, and stuff like that. So there's been designs that I've made where I think they're really good, but they're very elaborate, and they can't even fit on a card. Maybe like too much text, or it's trying to do too many things.
Mhm.
And those kind of ideas, you learn to like scrap those. But like, as you work your way down, you get more of like the concise like goal that you're trying to achieve, and it looks out really good. But man, what is another one that I can share? I
I have a
had one,
fun
but
one.
yeah, go ahead.
What is my number one criticism I give you when you
Yes.
submit a change to me?
So, okay, this is something this is something I've had to learn and fight with because when I came in, we did Haven. Haven went very well. It was a very like amazing learning experience for me, and it was very cool to see stuff I put in get like praised internally or like challenged, and like we made it better. So that was in its own was such a nice experience. So if you like Haven, partially you're welcome. If you hate Haven, I'm sorry. But in addition to that, we've worked on Shotgun and Alpha rework, which is stuff
Mhm.
that's coming later down the line. And with those, I mean, there's been now that Parallel has kind of found its footing and like what certain parallels do, what has succeeded and what has kind of fallen through the cracks in terms of some cards in the game that already exist. Some of those cards were, deemed for rework. Some were just deemed for just like making them better cards, like just buffing them a little bit, or bringing them into a line that's like a more acceptable. Um, and with that, I have gotten carried away countless times where I have found a card and I'm like, okay, let's do this thing. Like, let's change this ability. The design goal for the card is this, but it didn't accomplish it. Let's make it achieve that goal doing this. And
Mhm.
the classic answer that usually has me like screaming is like Veen saying, well, "Why don't we just make this a new card?"
Yep.
And
Interesting.
that's
Yeah.
the biggest thing I've had to learn. And it's probably more on the balance end than it is like any other parts of the design, I guess, like scope.
Mhm.
And you will see some cards though that will surprise you, like cards that you knew do one thing. They're not like fully reworked, but they achieve the goal a bit better. So we were a little liberal with Shotgun and Alpha rework for some of those, but not everything. And that was a big lesson I had to learn in design, that like, at the end of the day, you are cultivating like these experiences with new sets and stuff like that. So to go back to an old set and like do
Yeah.
that is kind of like, wasting precious material that can like really help push a narrative and design focus forward in another set, in a brand new set.
I could see you in particular having a little bit of a soft spot for the old cards because
Yeah.
you've been around for a long time.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I can definitely see that logic. And just on the shotgun patch and alpha rework, like, man, I'm just so curious. Like, is there can you, like, give a
Yeah, I'll give you a
little bit
card.
of
I'll give you
spoilers, you
I'll give
know?
you one of my favorite changes.
Okay, yeah, yeah,
Uh, so one of my favorite changes is to interrogation tools. And so
yeah. Okay.
interrogation tools is this you don't even know
Most
what it
people don't
does,
know
I
this
promise.
card.
It,
Is that card?
so if I actually want to bring it up and read it verbatim, and then we'll talk
Okay.
about what it changes to. And so what interrogation tools originally did is it's a relic for 2, it's Markolian. It has
Mhm.
activate. The next time you damage the enemy this turn, they reveal one of their bank cards instead, limit once per turn. And that card
What
is
set was
Base
this
set.
from?
This is base.
This is a base set? Really?
Yep.
yeah.
Wow.
Yep. It's been
And
here
so
since the beginning.
Okay, good.
what we changed it to is whenever you damage the enemy, they reveal one of their banked cards.
Okay, so no
No
limit.
activate, no limit once
No
per
No
turn, no
activate.
activate, no limit.
instead.
It's just clean.
It's just it's a much
Whoa.
easier card to understand. It does what it says.
Mhm,
It's you don't have to really understand a lot of the complicated rules. Like you don't have to know what activate does. You don't care about limit once per turn. You don't have to give up your damage. You can get the reveal and your damage, right? Does this make the card stronger? Absolutely. Does it make the card too
mhm,
strong? We don't think so. So a lot of what Shotgun and Alpha rework are trying to do is take cards that are either too busy or a little bit out of range, or they were safe shots that people, because like base set, no one knew what Parallel was. Like the people who were designing Parallel knew what the game was and they were testing it, but like the environment wasn't there yet. There wasn't a pro scene. We didn't have, a year of people competing at the highest level to show what cards are strong and what cards are weak. And we know
mhm.
now interrogation tools can be stronger and it probably won't bring down the walls. So
Yeah,
what we're doing is going through and taking a pass on as much as we can and either adding strength or adding elegance, or removing cruft where possible. So like on net, I would say we removed a bunch more words than we added, but where we
yeah,
added words, they are pretty exciting.
Yeah, I will say that
that's
there
great.
are some elements of Shotgun and Alpha rework that excite me and also scare me. Like
Fair, yeah.
we did take some risks out there, and we might, we might have, changed the meta a little bit when those things happen. There's also like treasure in there for sure for someone that wants to dig and look at the cards. Like we did that episode with Fat Cat and Lambie. I'm sure
Yeah,
he'll be staring at the cards
I
and
was
reading them
thinking the
because
same
there's
thing.
gold in there for sure.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, some are a little more obvious, some are a little more nuanced. But like Veen said, we just took an effort at bringing everything into line with everything we've learned about the game up to this point.
Yeah. I love the
It's
way you phrased adding elegance too, because just some too many cards are too wordy. Like just needed to be
Yeah,
distilled down, and made it a little bit simpler to understand. Sorry, Bean, I think you were gonna say something else though. Go ahead.
it's how many games get a chance to do sort of a V2 pass, right? Like this
Mhm.
is something that we can do because we're digital. This is something we can do because we're
Right.
beta. This is something that like I couldn't do working on Magic, and I could do to a lesser extent on action games, but this is something that like a TCG can do specifically well, a digital TCG, especially one that's early in its lifespan to get a content shakeup, a meta shakeup, and breathe more life into backlist stuff. So
it's like a
we're hoping that
remaster a little bit.
it is like a remaster, right?
Yeah.
And we're also like a lot of this is in preparation for, and I know that I'm going to say something that's going to make people go wild and try to get some dates, and I don't have dates, and it's a long time from now, but this is all prep work for draft mode. What we're trying to do
I
is
didn't
make
know you were gonna say that today.
I've mentioned to people that what
I
we're
didn't
trying to
like
do
that, but
is I know that draft mode is a thing that we've said is coming. We don't have a date yet. It's not being actively worked on engineering wise, but like these changes need to happen to make the cards draftable. We need to have a better understanding of the rarities. We need to have them be more readable. We need to have them have less text, and we need to have
Mhm.
them be applicable in more situations. So part of this facelift was not only for what we get now, but what we get in the future is a healthier game to draft from.
Facelift. I like little nip, little tuck here and there for the game, but I mean, I think it's a good philosophy because from the beginning, Parallel has been building in public. That's sort of been the phrase, right? And I think that you mentioned the fact that it's in the digital sense, like you can do this. You might as well. Let's like improve it with time, and that's got me super excited. So how many cards? Can you give me a rough estimate with the shotgun patch and the alpha rework, just
It's
to
more
get
than
a
you think.
gauge?
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Like Shotgun is can I say like over 30 cards?
Yeah,
More? Yeah,
Cool.
like it's a lot of cards between both of them. We literally sat down and did multiple passes of like
card by
looking at
card.
every card, card by card. Is this fine? What can we do to this? Is it too wordy? Can we make it, elegant? Can we buff it if it needs to? Um, does it achieve the design goal? If not, how can we get it there? And like, yeah, I've looked at every card in the game at this point just as a designer, like, man, more than 10 times for sure.
Yep,
Like, just
yep.
like literally sitting there, card by we're on a shout out to Paralink. We're on Paralink, just like card
Airlink
by
is
card,
fantastic.
clicking back, clicking back, clicking back. And yeah, we've gone through them a lot, and there is a lot of changes. 100%.
Amazing. Well, and it's coming at a perfect time too with the mobile rollout, like, giving people the fresh feel. I mean, I suppose the new players won't really know the difference, but now is certainly the time. Okay, so we do have lots of questions from the community, but before we get into that, I want to, ask Mooka if there's anything else you want to, kind of wrap on
Mm,
your experience. And I wanted to bring up that Mooka comes from like your world was Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Like that
yeah.
was
Oh,
your
yeah.
introduction to card games and a big part of your life. So, and that's very different, right, from
Yeah.
the nature of Parallel, and so I'm just kinda curious of your sort of design philosophy and, in starting there and, what you would wanna sort of bring to Parallel or just I'll let you kinda tangent
Yeah.
on
No,
that
I mean,
concept.
that's a very good point. There was a question that later on, if we get to, kind of talks about what's that experience like, but I can talk about it now.
Mhm.
So for me personally, coming from Yu-Gi-Oh as like was being like the bulk of my TCG kind of experience, it's definitely like TCG, like Yu-Gi-Oh is a broken game. Like you can do anything. Like it's
Yeah.
like the game is equalized because everybody can do everything. So it's like if everything's OP, nothing's OP is like
Mhm.
their motto. That's not always the case because there's always one thing that's the most OP. That's how they sell cards. But with Yu-Gi-Oh, there are elements of Yu-Gi-Oh that I have incorporated in design before. It takes a lot of time to like look at a Yu-Gi-Oh mechanic that maybe you want to put into a like as a card and be like, okay, how does this fit into parallel? Because I can kind of like see you like the way I work it is like I'll look at it and be like, okay, what is it as like a magic card? Because magic has like been around longer and Veen operates a lot in magic. So it helps me
Mhm.
kind of
Mhm.
like understand. So I go Yu-Gi-Oh! It's kind of like how did magic kind of frame something like this? And then I'm like, how does that frame to parallel? Because there's still a difference between how magic operates and how parallel operates.
Sure.
So it is a leap, but I will say I've accomplished getting some Yu-Gi-Oh flavor into parallel in the future. It is not cracked like Yu-Gi-Oh, but it's inspired by certain cards that I really liked. And those ones were kind of like they fit the theme of what we were trying to do. So we can touch on this a little bit. Like with design, there is a lesson that Veen taught me that I saw from a video from Mark Rosewater, who's the lead of Magic the Gathering. And he talks about like building or designing with constraints. When we were working on Haven, we worked very closely with GL, who's the narrative lead of Parallel, and he told us what was happening in this set across all the parallels. What were they doing in this setting? What were their goals? Like who's involved? Which main characters are matter for this set and stuff like that. And when you design that way, you get a much more cohesive set. You get a lot more identity of what each parallel is
Mhm.
doing when you as you're playing the cards, it kind of tells the story. Like, what is that parallel
Right.
like in this setting? And it's way easier to design cards and to do things. So if I took an inspiration from like say Yu-Gi-Oh, it's because it fit into that setting. Like, oh, what is a character like? I'll just throw out an arbitrary name. Like, what is Gafar trying to do here? And you're like,
Mhm.
okay, he's doing this. Okay, what does that action look like as a card? And that's how you can make like your sets and stuff a little more cohesive, a lot more fun, and it just you always get a lot more creative. When there's constraints, it's much easier to be creative. There were
Right.
certain parallels with Haven that we finished all the cards narrative wise, but we still had slots open. And I went to Veen and I was like, I don't know what to do.
How do
Like,
I design cards
how
without
do I
knowing how
how
to
do I
start?
design like it's a blank page? And I was
Yeah.
like, this parallel in particular has already been designed very well. There's not a
Mhm.
lot of gaps for it from prior sets. Some parallels were easy to design for because there were certain gaps I wanted to fill mechanically. So it's not just narrative; it's also mechanic. I want this parallel to do more of this thing. But
Right.
some are designed pretty well already up to this point, and are very well. And I was like, dude, I have no idea what we do here. Like, there's like 3 slots, and I don't know what to go here. And that really goes to show you that you really want to put constraints where you can, because it's much easier to come up with a very elegant card or a powerful card, something that like interacts with other pieces. Because once you have a narrative, you're like, okay, well, this card does this part, this other card does this part, and it's like they all just like mesh super easily. So that was one thing that from you, like, I know we were talking about like my Yu-Gi-Oh experience, but like that all kind of like paired together right away for me. I had to kind of like learn that because we did Haven going first. But that was a very cool one. But in regards to like me being Yu-Gi-Oh and like Veen being Magic, there's a lot of time when we were designing cards that I'm like, do you know this Yu-Gi-Oh card? And he's like, no. And
Nope.
I go to like some Yu-Gi-Oh database and I look it up. And he has a sort of outlook on Yu-Gi-Oh. Sometimes he's like, what is this card? And Yu-Gi-Oh cards are like extremely wordy.
They
They
scare me,
are they
man.
are paragraphs. So
Yeah.
I'll have to distill the card and what is it trying to do to Veen and stuff like that. And then he goes, "Oh, have you heard of this card?" And I'm like, "Of course, no." So he goes on Scryfall, which is the Magic database,
Ah,
and he
yeah.
pulls up a similar card. And then we start like going back and forth. And through that, sometimes we piggyback and like be like, "Okay, well, these are how these two games did these things. What if we did it this way?" So there
Mhm.
is a lot of I've learned through like my own like self education and through Veen and stuff that like a lot of games may do similar things, but they add their own flavor to that's like from their own game to make it unique. And just because like there's shields in one shooter and shields in another shooter doesn't mean the shields are the same.
Right.
They have
Yeah.
their own way of working. So like same way with card games, if Magic plays on a mechanic and Yu-Gi-Oh plays on a mechanic, just because Parallel also plays on the mechanic doesn't mean they're all the same mechanic.
You could take something that's, like, mechanically identical from Magic and put it in Parallel,
Mm.
and it would be different, and so you have
Right.
to be aware of when you're taking elements from game A and game B that, like, if they solved it using this answer and they solved it using this answer, what were they trying to solve for? Like, what is the challenge in
Yeah.
their game that's different than our game? And then you make sure that when you morph something into your game, that you're taking the learnings from theirs and putting it into yours.
Yeah, having the multiple backgrounds of different card game categories seems pretty useful. My brain is trying to figure out like what would be the like Yu-Gi-Oh, no mana restriction, right?
Yeah.
And I would say like something like a Hearthstone would probably fit more into
Yeah.
the Magic
That's not to say we
category.
just look at Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh too, by the way. We do look up Hearthstone cards,
Yeah,
we look up Legend of
Yeah.
Runeterra cards, like,
I'm
there's
like,
usually
what's
some
that
card that's been done.
next category that's like different enough other than Magic and Yu-Gi-Oh? But I can't really necessarily think of it. But yeah, I think having all the different backgrounds certainly makes for a well-balanced team.
Yeah.
So that's really good to hear. Another question that popped into my head that I was actually curious about when you were giving that spiel was what's actually the most difficult parallel slash Paragon, but probably just parallel to design for, have you found?
I have an answer.
Mm, you go first.
Augen Core.
Okay. I
Encore.
find Augen Core to be one of my easiest. Like
Wow.
like
Interesting.
like
Ooh.
when we did Haven, I came up with Augen Core cards like fast. And I was every day was like, I have more Augen Core cards. Like, do you want to look at them? More Augen Core, more Augen like Augen Core, Earthen, and Markolian in that order was like easiest to like getting harder. Cathari was a little hard. Shroud sometimes tripped me up. I depended a lot on
Hmm.
narrative because Shroud is uh it's cohesive. Like they do what they do already very well. And you don't want to run into the pitfall where you give them the same thing that's just stronger. So it's like, oh, now I
Mhm.
just replace this card with this card.
Right.
Um or you want to give them like another avenue to keep doing the same thing but maybe slightly differently. Like it's kind of complex. Like Shroud is probably in my opinion the closest to like a quote unquote like perfected parallel in terms of like identity. Like they do what
Mhm.
they do very well.
I think
The
Shroud and
other
Marco are both up there.
Yeah, Marco's a little easier because it's more like on the unit like aggro side. So like you can always make more things with them doing their things, and they already do something so well. But because they're aggro, like it's all chunked in like a certain part of the cost curve. So you
Mhm.
don't have to like fight them as much. You can introduce like variants there that like, oh, maybe you swap this one for this one, but for a certain goal, you're trying to do it. But like they also have a whole other part of the curve that's like fairly undiscovered that you can mess with. Um, but Shroud is like, man, throughout the whole thing, like 1 to 8 is pretty good.
And
It's pretty good parallel.
for me, like coming at the parallels that are the most robust, which is oftentimes a challenge. Like, what do I do when there's a robust parallel? What do I add? To me, that just gives me a fertile ground of like things, seeing things that have worked, and there's a whole like slew of other things that we can do that are remixes of that. The reason that Augen Core is so hard to me is because Augen Core is stumbling in terms of like trying to find a competitive identity and trying to find like
Mhm.
where the core fun is and trying to make that something that shines mechanically through in the overarching game. It was really nice to have someone who was so excited about coming up with new Augen Core stuff. But for me, I'm still struggling with trying to find like when I play Augen Core and it feels like I'm playing Augen Core, I want it to both feel like I'm on equivalent footing to the other parallels, but I'm
Mhm.
also doing something that I couldn't do in someone else's deck. Like, why did I play orange? Like, what am I doing in this
Mhm.
color, in this parallel that I can't do elsewhere that's a ton of fun? And coming up with stuff that is equivalently fun on the opposite side to lose to is the hard part, right? Like if you
Yeah.
make there's if I wanted to make just build up my robot, make this giant thing with upgrades and it can't be banished and it's shielded and blah blah blah. Like that's like we're back to JRJ territory.
Mhm.
That's what the Augen Core promise is trying to say, but like doing that in a way that's fun to both play and lose to is hard for
Yeah.
me.
I think that challenge is actually why I like designing for Augen Core because it's like you're taking more shots at goal. Like,
Yeah.
let me try this other way of doing it. Let's try this other approach. So it's like, yes, there's a gap to or gaps to fill for certain parallels, but it's just another try at like doing that. The respins is where I get a little like, oh snap, like man, is this exciting enough? Like with Shroud, some of the cards I looked at like a couple times, and I'm like, are people just gonna play this or just gonna ignore all these cards and like
Yeah.
pick like two cards? So
And that's the
that's
thing,
yeah,
that's gonna happen, right, with any
that
set.
is
So
gonna happen.
you
Yes.
you release I think that it's 96 cards, right? So you release 96 cards or whatever, and then how many of those are gonna actually hit? Like, how many cards out of
Hmm.
Planetfall were hits? How many cards out of Aftermath were hits?
Yeah.
Uh, and it's always hard to see something that you worked so hard on, like, you see 5% of it go competitive and get love, and then the other 95% is there to sell packs and be part of the draft experience and be part
Yeah.
of the building experience, but yeah, it's, I see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
That's an
Uh,
interesting conundrum, like, if there is disagreement, healthy disagreement, on, like, how something's gonna play out, then when it actually comes to the world, and you sorta get to see it,
yeah.
come to fruition, then, you'll have that, feedback, I
We have
suppose.
people that give us feedback internally, like the
Mhm.
three Bs, sparrows,
Mhm.
a few others that that may chime in here and there. But like we're a small, like Vina said it, we're a small group of people. Like just because they've added like Sparrows and I, who came from like a competitive part of Parallel, doesn't mean we're always going to get it right. Sparrows and I often disagree on some things too.
Yeah,
Like there are
often.
certain cards in Sparrows is like this card sucks, and I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, this card's like great, and we'll talk it out, and it works the same way with design. Like Veen and I'll suggest a new mechanic or a new card, and we'll work it out. Like that's why you have to kind of be very flexible in this position too. Like there are some things that I keep coming to Veen about. Like I'm like, dude, I know that we went here, but I really think we need to relook at this, and I'll explain why. And at a certain point, like you fought enough for it that you're like, okay, it's good. Like we'll let it go. Like
Mhm.
we've gotten as close as we can get to that thing. And but there are
That's
certain times where like we both go back and forth and we win the other over. Like so that's
yes.
Mhm.
important also.
And the other thing is, like, you're never done. That was something I
Yeah.
learned working on Magic sets is, like, there people ask, like, "Well, how do you know when a Magic set is done?" And the answer is when they ask us to print it. Like, you wanna work on it as much as possible because you can always make it better. You can
Yeah.
always play test more. You can always make a
We
change here. You can always
we
do
did
this.
shotgun stuff this week.
Yeah.
Like we went back
Shotgun's
Oh,
been
again.
wow.
in the can for a while.
Yeah, we've had a first draft done for a long time, and we still will go back and be like, dude, I don't know about this card, man. It's not hitting. Like we gotta try it again. and we'll sit there, and sometimes we get in, sometimes we're like, oh well, we can't. We'll come back to it again at a later point. But we are what until it has to go into the database that is used to make the updates on the cards. We are usually always looking at them.
Yep.
Cool. All right. This is definitely an episode where I could talk to you guys for like 2 hours, but we have not gotten to the questions yet. But I personally have one more question because I'm very curious about this, and I'm curious, how committed to class identities are you? We may have touched on this a different time, but remember Hearthstone sort of going through a rework where a lot of classes could do a bunch of different things, and they tried to distill it down and make, you know, like just druids the ramp class. And I I kind of joke that Markolian is like the druid of Hearthstone because it's got
Gets the
card
love.
draw, it's got AoE, it's
Play
got
cards.
burn, it's got good units, it's got pretty much it all, right? And so I'm wondering if you're going to try and take away and lean into certain strategies. I guess, granted, you have paragons and you want the disparity between those three as well. But yeah, I'm let you have the floor there and just kind of walk me through your thoughts on that question.
So the short version is we want to lean into it. So like what I want to do is like write down a mechanical color pie and divide up where the mechanics live, who's good at what, who's secondary at what, who's tertiary at what, who
Mhm.
can never do this, and that sort of thing. And I don't think that that was done explicitly from the outset, but I think that it does lead to healthier gameplay. It's less important in a game like so Magic, it was very important because of the way the resource system works and how you can combine. You could build a deck. Like if you pick that you want to build a 3-color deck, you just can. But in Parallel, you can't. So the idea of like every Parallel has to have access to a little bit of everything. Like right now, one of the things that Augen Core doesn't have is a dedicated relic removal. And like that's something where you have it in Universal, but like that's something that Augen Core should have access to because until you can multicolor, or that's if that's something we do in the future, like if you're playing Augen Core, you should have access to like reasonable options
Mhm.
for that. Um, but moving forward, I do think that like, for example, Marco has too much of the color pie. I feel like it's really easy to look at Marco and say like, "Oh, that's an aggro card, so it's totally okay because it's aggressive and it does this thing." But like if Marco can do everything, it makes it look like the other parallels have less to actually do and compete in the same
Right.
way. Um, does that mean that Marco is inherently too strong? I don't think so. Like I think that like having access to more of the pie is problematic and it makes it easier to sort of find the cards to do in decks what you want, and it's easier to design for them. But I think that going forward, you'll find that they do less mechanically and that the other parallels do more. When that exactly happens, I don't know. I know that we've started it in Deception and Haven, and it's going to be an ongoing task. But we don't have that mechanical color pie filled out yet. But that
Mhm.
is something that I talked to Mookah
Yeah.
2 weeks ago about how we needed to put that on the calendar and actually get that done.
Yeah, there are elements to where we've already started to discuss, like what does this parallel do better than the other parallels? Like, what do you rank? Like, he brought up relic removal. There have been discussions where we're like, okay, well, who's the best at relic removal? Who's the worst at relic removal? And like, what does that mean in terms of like card design? So like, we have like started to tier which parallels are good at certain things better than the others, and which ones can only do certain things. You'll start to see that like he said, in Deception onwards, but doesn't mean we've fully done it yet. But like we've started the process where like you'll start to clearly tell like, okay, this parallel is better than this one than all the others, and some can't do it at all,
Right.
in their own way.
Okay. All right. Great answer. All right. So we pulled the community. So let's get on to those questions. You can make them short and sweet if you want, so we can hopefully get to everyone's. So we'll start with Yo Jeremy's, and he asked, "What are some other mechanics and other TCGs that you guys are fond of and could potentially draw inspiration from in the future? For example, the shift mechanic in Lorcana, where you can evolve a current character on the board into a bigger, better version of the same character."
So Shift specifically is interesting, and Versus had the same thing where you could take so like Versus had this Versus was the comic book IP card game made by Upper Deck for a while. And if you had a copy of like Cyclops or Magneto in your hand and there was a Cyclops in play, you couldn't play your Cyclops. But everything that you could do, you could both play, you could overlay your Cyclops on top of it like a Pokemon evolution, or you could discard it from your hand to give your Cyclops +1/+1. And the reason they had to do that was like, if you are a Cyclops fan, you want to put a lot of Cyclopses in your deck. That's fun, right? But if you didn't have something to do with them when you had a Cyclops in play, that's an unfun moment. And so, what Disney's trying to do is say that, like, in Lorcana, you can't have more than one Rapunzel. That doesn't make any sense. There's only one Rapunzel. But if you have a Rapunzel, you can play big Rapunzel on top of it and shift it into larger Rapunzel. I don't think that we're going to go in that direction because we don't have a limited IP roster. Like, we have more characters, we
Right.
can do more stuff.
Mhm.
And the way that, like, our power characters are, instead of like being upgraded versions of units, they're typically the Paragons, or they are high cost units in and of themselves. Um, However, what are some mechanics I like from other games? Dude, too many to list. I think that there are so many great mechanics from other games that we could draw inspiration from, things that we could bring over. Like Mookah was talking about earlier, we talk about other games all the time. We talk about, like, I think that we talked about Legend of the Five Rings for Haven pretty extensively. If anyone figures out the L5R connection when Haven drops, I'll be quite impressed. Uh, eh, Someone will figure it out. It's pretty obvious now that I've said it.
Yeah.
Uh, but we talk about Yu-Gi-Oh cards, we talk about Magic cards, we talk about Hearthstone sets. Um, like, I think that if I like, I wouldn't be surprised if mechanics that we come out with are eventually like either a remixed version people could find from a game that already exists, or if another game ended up using a mechanic very similar to what we're doing. Um, I think that, like, withdraw especially, I'd be shocked if people, if in a game that has, like, you can bank any card, didn't use a withdraw style mechanic at some point in the future. Um, yeah, I can't name anything specifically that I'm planning on bringing
We'll give it
over,
away if
but
we tell you which ones, but
yeah.
we do a lot. We talk a lot.
But
Like
yeah,
just
there's
yesterday,
tons of stuff.
uh,
Cool.
yeah, just yesterday we were talking about new mechanics that could maybe go into like future sets beyond and beyond. And like, yeah, that conversation involves like talking about how other games approach the problem. And then, like we said before, like how do you distill that down into like what Parallel is trying to accomplish and that it's fun and that people will enjoy it and stuff like that. So yeah, we talk about mechanics in other games all the time.
Cool. Amazing. All right, let's move on to a Money Planes question, which might be a little bit in line with what I asked earlier, but if there's anything else to add, what are the game designs team thoughts on how to achieve interfaction balance? All too often, one faction balance change sets apart a clear winner. Will we see adjustments to or more Paragon specific cards?
Yes.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so we're definitely gonna fix the Paragon specific cards. We're definitely gonna take a look at the Paragons themselves, and how do we achieve interfaction balance carefully and through a lot of iteration. I think that what we're doing, like, if I had to say, I'd say that the meta minus the bugs right now is, like, in a better shape than it's been in quite a while. I think that the balance is pretty good. I think it's going to get thrown off as soon as Shotgun comes up. I think it's going to get thrown off when Deception comes out, and I think it's going to get reshaken every time there's content. And so what we do is we see how it shakes out. A lot of times metas are self-balancing. Like, that's what we want. We want people to find what's good and then what's strong against that and have that be
Mhm.
what the meta does. But in a world where the meta can't actually find that either equilibrium or stasis or whatever, then we go in and we make changes to cards as necessary. But, like, are we going to fix, like, how Earthen needs their alpha stuff to be better because Earthen is the weakest parallel in alpha? Yes, we're gonna fix that. Are we gonna
Yeah.
fix the fact that some of the, like, Neve's Dominion is very good, but, like, can anyone name what, the Paragon specific card is for all the Paragons? Probably not, right? We're gonna make it so
We're hoping
all
you
of
can
them.
after
Right, we're
this year.
hoping that matters, right?
Yeah. In addition to that, like I think a lot of people look at parallel design right now and what they mean by like the parallels aren't balanced, usually comes down to like cost curve is like what a lot of people look at. And you'll see throughout the year and so on that like we have taken our shot at like letting the parallels come more to life along the cost curve. So like a lot of people complain Augen Core does not have good one drops. So like throughout the next sets and patches, you'll see Augen Core get some one drops that are good. There are some that Sparrows has told me like this is crazy. Like I can't believe you're making this card. So like it's not to say that this is like this beat outright beats a 2/2 Valorusi striker or like a Fleet Machinist into Bloodhound, but it's more to say that we have fleshed out the curve that it allows that parallel to do what it wants to do, what's in its identity a little more cohesively. and you'll see us. We've taken stabs at that a couple times throughout the Deception Haven and so forth.
And the battle pass cards.
Yeah, and Battle Pass cards.
Incredible. All right, this is a fun one from Caleb Calamari. It's fitting the food name. If you had to pick one food to represent each parallel, what foods would they be?
This is so tough. If
I love this question.
I feel like Augen Core has to have, like, no offense to Augen Core players, it has to have like the trashiest food because like
No,
they were living off
I
of
think it
like
has to have
asteroids
it.
and stuff.
I think it has to have like an A plus B. I think it's something that can't live without something else. You have to have the
Ooh.
unit and the upgrade. That's Augen Core. So you have to have like it's like what is a food that you can't have without another food or without a condiment?
Oh man.
Oh, that's the game design brain right there.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I
I went
mean? I
from the
love that.
lore angle. You hit it with the game design. I see it.
Um,
Dude, I don't know. I can say that I feel like Marcolian is like more like military mess hall food, right? That's like an easy one to
Yeah,
assume.
or like a
Yeah.
Frito street taco. It's just
Yeah,
like everything's in a
exactly.
bag. It all
Yep.
the food is in there. It's delicious. The
Yeah.
presentation might not be there, but it gets the job done.
Yeah. Unless you're like on top, then you're probably eating good. If you're like high up in the military, you're chilling in Marco.
Yep.
Um, Man, Augen Core, I'm picturing you're saying combo. I'm picturing like space food. Like,
Okay.
they're just like paste. It's like almost like these are your nutrients.
I'm thinking tacos because it's like
Okay.
scrap, like you're like throwing a bunch of stuff in
Oh,
a taco, and like you can't just eat a taco with
space
lettuce or,
tacos.
I'm feeling maybe tacos
I
for
like that.
Augen Core.
Earthen is a garden salad.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, they're easy.
They
They're
they
still on
they
Earth.
grew it themselves, and they didn't have to hurt anyone to do it. Let's
Sorry.
say Shroud is your lunch from yesterday.
Yeah.
What it
They went
context.
they somehow went into your fridge, stole your leftovers, and ate them before you could eat
Yeah.
them.
They went
Oh,
through
I
the
thought you were talking
singularity
about
and stole your
Mookah.
food.
Okay.
No, 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 no.
Oh, no,
Stolen
yeah, no.
lunch.
Just the royal you,
Yeah.
everybody.
Got it. I
Yeah,
see.
I feel like Cathari, their food is like the impossible like meat and stuff. Like it's all like lab
Oh,
grown
yeah, lab
like
grown.
Oh,
foods.
that's
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah,
clever.
for sure.
yeah, yeah.
That's a great answer. Love that.
That was a good question. That was tough.
It was.
Sorry
I
for the
feel like we
Augen Core
did it.
people. I was hating on your food.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll keep moving on. That was fun though. Bootleg PT. Is any work being done to improve the game's UI and animation time with better visuals? That seems to be the game's biggest weakness right now. We need to have a smoother gaming experience. And then another one is Augen Core. I think the short answer is yes,
Yes.
absolutely. Right. I
2 thumbs
almost
up,
I
yes. We want it to
can't
be better. We're working
Yeah.
on it in multiple ways.
Yes.
for sure. And then the secondary one is Augen Core going to get any big units and upgrades like 8, 9, 10 cost? Like 10
This is a
cost
very
upgrade?
solid question, and I actually am very
Hmm.
excited to answer. So getting big units, yes. Getting big upgrades is problematic because of overclock. So, like, if I put an 8
Mm,
cost
mhm,
upgrade in the pool or a 9 cost upgrade, you would
mm,
expect it to be incredibly powerful, right? But then someone could just roll it very cheaply for overclock. So until overclock rotates, I don't think you're going to see very expensive Augen Core upgrades. You'll see strong ones low on the curve, but also like a very expensive upgrade is also kind of like, if you think about it, it's a unit that has battle ready that you can't play on its own. But the idea of like if you have a unit and what you bring is a bunch of stats or power on the upgrade and you attach it to something that was already in play, all of what you're getting from this 8, 9, 10 cost card is happening immediately. And that's not
mhm.
something that the other parallels have the same access to. But like, do I want to give Augen Core the big ultimate upgrade that costs a bunch? Yes, absolutely. But I think that like we need to find a way to do that. Maybe it's as clunky as we just omit it from the overclock list, but that doesn't sound fun. But yeah, it is something we're thinking about. But in terms of big units, yes, they'll get big honking units for sure.
Yeah, that's
Well,
tricky. Like, that's like a Hearthstone with cards like Yogg Saron, like there's
yeah.
10 cost spells in the game, and so
Yep.
when you cast a card like that and you get 5, 10 costs, it's like insane value versus, a 1 and a 2 here. So that does seem tricky. It's fun, it's exciting, it makes good content, but it's frustrating from a competitive standpoint where you're just high rolling
But
and
also
things like that.
Yogg costs like 10. And so
True.
if you
Very
had
true.
if you had there's an overclock for 1, that's like yogging for 1. So like
Right.
what we
Yeah.
so how early do you want the variance to hit in your game is the other
Yeah.
question.
Yeah, we've seen Augen Core games just immediately over with like when Forlorn Companion was played, the one cost overclock. You would
Mhm.
play, you would bank a Sestamir and you'd overclock into Upcycle, and you're like, okay, I
Yeah.
won.
Yep.
So that's the concern right now.
That's a good example. All right, Agent K has got a few questions here. Actually, no, hang on. I'm sorry. Q Flux, we didn't skip you. One more from you before we get to Agent K's multitude of questions here. Are there any thoughts around printing more cards like Formatician's Exalt that have discard synergies? Feel like more discard synergy is what YuGiOh needs to find her place in the meta without increasing Scipius's power.
That's another easy one. Yes.
Yeah.
The idea of like figuring out ways to find cards that go to specific paragons that don't impact the other paragons is part of the challenge of like coming up with fun new stuff in each set. So yeah, expect to see things like Formatician's Exalt, expect to see things like Second Wave Soldier for Kathy, expect to see things that like are very obviously angled toward one paragon over the other.
Mhm. Okay.
There
All
was one
right.
from Bhavin too I wanted to answer. We missed it.
Yeah, go for it.
I only like it. He asked when are you bringing back the old GRJ? And I'll just answer that it is touched upon, and you will see JRJ in some way or form later this year.
Let's call him half the old one.
Yeah, a
Ooh,
little more.
okay.
He's a little more.
He's
He's
a little
gotten
more than
better.
half. Yeah.
Yeah,
Actually, that leads me into just the uh, philosophical question of just like combo decks. Like, how much do you want to lean into? Well, I guess OTK decks.
So OTK without interaction is frustrating. Combo
Mhm.
decks with interaction are totally fine, especially if they're like a lot of the Shroud combo decks like use Taste of Power, right? And if a Shroud combo deck is using Taste of Power and there's any good answer, then like I'm totally fine with it because you can just Taste of Power out the answer of what you're trying to do.
Right.
Do I have an inherent problem with combo decks? No. However, do I have an inherent problem with the fact that combos in our game currently take like 10 plus minutes? Yeah, I do.
yeah.
That's
That's
not
the
great.
main thing.
Do I have a problem with the fact that like you didn't have a way to meaningfully interact with their board or their combo before like turn 9 and then they beat you? Yeah, I do. I do mind that,
Mhm.
right? But like the idea of like right now the ulterior designs bug has shown us that like there are combo decks that can exist in a healthy space. Like I'm not super happy with the fact that it's bugged and obviously not working the way that it should, but like this is a deck that at a high level you can play and perform pretty well with, but like even looking at the people who are playing it at the highest level, it's not performing out, it's not even better than the other decks in that parallel. Um so like that's the kind of combo deck that is healthy to have around and fun to have around. Like we're not anti-combo. We are anti non-interactive, unhealthy, unfun combo. And
Yeah.
combo that takes too long.
Or combo that's just too easy. You know, if
Oh yeah,
I
you
feel
should
it
have to work
right.
for it.
Yeah,
Hmm.
you should definitely have to work for it. It's a good answer. Gives me a lot of faith, honestly. All right, Agent K's got a few. You might have touched on this a little bit, but if there's anything else you want to add, he asks, what new mechanics are coming with Deception, and can you reveal the card details of a Paragon-focused Deception card, please?
So new mechanics are withdraw and stealth primarily, which we have talked about.
Hmm.
Withdraw is withdraw N, and you can spend N to cast this from your bank. Um, And then stealth is that this unit can't be targeted or attacked until by your enemy until it attacks once.
Hmm.
But you can still target it and put upgrades on it and things like that. And then as far as what card to uh,
He's asking
give
us
the
to
full
leak a card
details,
essentially,
leak a
and
You don't
card.
have to answer if you
we
don't
came
want to.
prepared. We came
We did
prepared.
we did come prepared.
Oh,
Yeah,
Did
okay.
you
we
did
came
you
with
actually want to leak the card or no specifically you don't want to be a leaker ever?
Leak
me.
it. Leak
Yeah, you
it.
came up with the
Well,
card.
I this is the loophole is that we got Bhavin approved. So like
That's
this is
true.
Oh.
not me leaking it. This is
It's
Bhavin Bhavin
Bobbin's
through
leak.
me leaking it.
Mm,
So the card we're gonna do a Markolian one because he
okay.
wanted one that kind of goes through Paragon identity, and we think this one does that. It's called Ghostlight Beacon. It is a 3-cost relic, and it reads: you can activate, pay 1 energy, create an irregular that you don't already control, limit once per turn. So if you guys don't remember there is a card called Lemieux's Irregulars. Lemieux has a band of people that he works with when he goes on these missions called the Irregulars. So there are multiple of
Oh.
them, and you will see them in Deception through
They're
various
they're
Oh.
forms.
they're a group of 4 different tokens, and each one, when you read the phrase "create an irregular" on a card, it will create an irregular, one of the 4 tokens. And what Ghostlight Beacon does is it summons down uh, each of the different irregulars as long as you don't already have them. But you can get doubles otherwise.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Do you wanna can you give an example of one of the tokens of what it does?
Oh, she's
Sure.
fishing for more.
I'm fishing. I'm trying to get more.
Uh,
One of the irregulars is 3/1.
Okay. All right.
yeah.
I won't ask any more questions. I'll try and leave the surprise.
That's
Uh,
the largest irregular by size.
okay.
Yeah, by
Cool.
size. But some of them have keyword
Some of them
text.
have
So
keywords.
Yeah.
that one is just a flat 3/1 body, but some of them do other stuff.
Okay. Cool. Does the design team prioritize balancing the game for the most number of players or more towards the highest rank players?
Great question, and
That
the
is a
answer
great
is
question.
false dilemma. We do both.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh, so do we pay attention to the top end for some specific cards? Absolutely. Do we pay attention to the bottom end for other cards? Absolutely. We are trying to balance. So like the most important aspect of the game is the new player experience and growing the game. So like we want the game to be the best at the lowest ranks. However, we also have an esports scene and we have a pro
Mhm.
scene, and so it has to be watchable and has to be good on that scale. So if there's ever anything that is out of whack at the highest levels, we have to tamp it down and fix it. But if something at the highest levels is like 1 or 2% too good, or even 5% too good, but it's still fine at the lower levels, we'll leave it be too good at the highest levels. Um, it's something where it's a constant balancing act. If I had to pick between the most people or the highest end, I would pick the most people, but luckily
Mhm.
I don't have to pick most of the time.
Yeah. To further add to this, like when we're designing cards, we don't design cards to be like, oh yeah, this is going to show up in tournaments for sure. That is not the
Yeah.
primary objective. It's something that's not even thought about until we've gone way well past the first draft of a set. How it usually works is one, a narrative design. I talked about it before, like the constraints narratively. What are we trying to showcase to the in regards to story or like theme? And then on top of that, it is, man, where do we they're the personas. That's where I wanted to go with this.
Psychographics.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are different types of players that play card games, and we try to the what what is like most commonly known are like is how Magic does it, or how they've Mark Rosewater has kind of identified it, is like the Spike player, the Johnny or Jenny, or the Timmy and Tammy. So like
Yeah.
you may have heard this before, but the Spike player is the competitive guy. He's trying to he's looking for cards with like high ceiling, like that, like it looks like it does one thing, but you can use it in a different sort of scenarios and get a different value out of it. The Timmy and Tammy is trying to pull something off. So that
Mhm.
card is like, maybe you can, it's like you can pull off the card and maybe you can't. And then the no, that's Johnny
So
and
it's
Jenny.
it's
Yeah, but
the
Timmy and
three
Tammy,
psychographics are Spike wants to prove something. So
yeah,
Spike
Mhm.
wants to win. uh, Timmy and Tammy want to experience something, so they want to see something big happen. They want to play big
Mhm.
cards. They want to lose to big cards. They want
yep,
randomness. They want drama. And Jenny and Johnny play to express something. So they want to
yes, that's what it
showcase
was.
something that they're trying to prove something with their either their deck design or their the way that they see the game. The idea is it's an art project as much as it is a game.
Yeah. So some cards are a little more open ended for like skill expression if it's there. Some cards are there for just like thematically they all do this thing. So somebody that wants to achieve this goal can go ahead and do that. And then through that, all of those are tied in under the narrative umbrella to tell the story.
Yeah. I would imagine that that's actually been quite tough because I think, at least in the early days of Parallel, like the hardcore community are the competitive players that are,
Mhm.
they're also the most vocal. And I would imagine with the move to mobile, we're going to get way more casuals, and that, disparity is going to shift a little bit. But I can see that being tough. But great answers from both of you on that. Let's move on. We're almost done here. With the combination of free creator decks, card crafting, and bonds in the game, the hype derived from chasing cards is dampened a lot. What is being done to improve on this? I think that's really interesting concept. Um,
You
I
want to jump on this,
very
Veen?
curious.
Sure. Yeah. So right now, uh, the game is hyper generous and it will be getting more generous while we're growing, but eventually it
Mhm.
won't be this generous and there will be more cards. And so right now there's not a lot to collect. And once you've collected it, you're like, I did it. But like, I promise there's more stuff coming. And it's still a lot to collect for a brand new player. However, knowing that like once the challenge, like I don't feel like specifically bonds hurts the environment, because like when we're talking about bonds, like that's still an aggregate demand problem or an aggregate supply problem, right? Like you still need to have the number of cards go to the number of players, so someone's opening the packs, right? Even if it doesn't happen to be the end user, those packs are still being purchased and opened. Um, but I feel like we have a game that currently doesn't have the balance right in terms of how much, like, there are people who have enough scrap to last them a lifetime. There are people
Mhm.
who have the collection, two or three times over. But like those also aren't most players. So if your collection journey is done, I assure you that we will give you more to collect in the future, but that someone else's collection journey is just starting. But that we are aware that we are being incredibly generous with the process right now, and that's on purpose. Like we're trying to
Yeah.
be very sticky and very generous.
Sort of like in tangential to that question, it was when in-game collectors scores ranks based on primary wallet collection. Like, how much do you want to give bells and whistles to the collectors,
So,
essentially?
someday that's
Yeah.
something that is basically not an if but a when, but it's later, it's past all of what we're doing content wise, it's past what we're doing performance wise. Like that's something where once we have the client in a place where we want it to be, those are the kinds of things that we want to add for the player growth journey and to make it more exciting.
Yeah.
Um, with 6.6 and 6.7, you will see quick play and the progression journey change for new players. We think for the better. But after that, we'll get something like maybe not a rewards row like Snap has, but like a collection level definitely makes
Mhm.
sense. It's I don't know what that looks like. We haven't started working on it, but like we've talked about it, and it's something that no one thinks is a bad idea. It's just when someone actually writes a spec for it and gets it done and gets it in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I hear this question, I think about the one that we were just asked before was like, are we doing things to improve UI, animation time, visuals, UX, UI, like that kind of stuff, performance related stuff is the bulk of being what's handled right now, in
Yep.
addition to a steady stream of content.
Yeah.
Veen mentioned like, the sets that we're working on, the patches we're working on. He even, talked about draft mode, which is awesome. I'm really happy that we have mentioned it now, like kind of technically officially, that it's being worked on. So all those things are content related. On the other side, we want the game to be functional. And when someone plays it for the first time, it's not slow for them. Actions are happening fast. They're all working. It makes sense. The game looks nice. Those are all things that are happening that have to happen first before we can move on to like all bells and whistles.
Right. And like
Endless things
that's
to
it is
do.
an important bell. It's an important whistle. It's
Important,
just
yeah,
that,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, it seems like there are just endless things to do, but the feel and the like first player experience, like those things,
yeah,
definitely highest priority on the
yeah,
list for the retention, right? And then
yeah.
you can cater to the more hardcore collectors and stuff like that.
Yeah. I am happy to
And
hear
then
those questions though, because that means
yeah,
like when we bring it up internally, because this has, I've only been here a short amount of times, but I've heard, been in conversations now about these things. So that means like on the inside, we want it too.
Yep.
It's
right.
just, and if a person asks that, that means, okay, we're both aligned. It'll get there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the last one we've already touched on, it was about game modes. Are there new game modes coming to Parallel? And so I might shift the question a little bit. And where would you prioritize? Like, is draft at the top of the list? 3v3,
Hardcore.
like
Yes.
collaborative has been thrown out. Like, where a
Mm,
PVE? Where
I
do you
wouldn't
put?
say stuff is thrown out, but like draft is very high up there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like draft is very high up there because like the company has alignment on wanting it to exist. Uh, so and there's a lot that we can do on the design side to sort of get the game ready for it, and then there's a lot that the engineering side can do, uh, based off of what we give them, rather quickly. And I'm hoping that we can get something like I think that we're going to get uh a two-stage rollout. We're going to aim for something that's like MVP and then get something that's 1.0 later, which is very much the
mhm,
parallel way. Uh, but as far as other game modes, everything is like there have been a lot of things suggested and thrown out there, but like in terms of what's sticking right now, the thing that has the most momentum by far is draft mode.
Yeah.
yeah.
And to, okay, fine, frick. I'm gonna leak a little bit. It's not a crazy leak, but I will say that we've gone as far as draft mode and not just looking at the cards. People within the company, we've let them try out draft structures that we've
Yeah.
designed, and
Like
like
we've prototyped like rudimentary draft structures and had people run through it to see if it was fun.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's moving.
I just think when you look at the field of TCG players, like a lot of them are draft players. It's
Yeah.
like
Yes.
you're kind of missing out on a very significant subset of people that just don't want to play, competitive standard ladder,
Constructed,
that
right.
type of thing.
Mhm.
It's constructed,
It's also
exactly.
it's harder to get into, right? Like you need a
Mhm.
collection. You don't need a collection to play draft. You need to understand the meta. You don't
Sure.
need to understand the meta to play draft. You need to, you want to grind up to master and start earning. It's like that's kind of a big deal. Like, what if I just played this draft and see if I can get 7 wins instead? You know what I mean? Like, there's just a ton of reasons that this is and not an easy win, but and not even a low hanging fruit, but like a good called shot win, a good like something we can see as it'll be a heavy lift, but it'll be worth the lift. And
Mhm.
I think this is going to be
Definitely.
like one of the first major features we deliver from zero that I think will show people what we're capable of doing.
Especially for mobile too. I just feel like that experience, like it works so
Yeah.
well in Hearthstone. Like I definitely look forward to that a lot. And I was on the Reddit the other day, the parallel. By the way, just to the community in general, from Allie, you use the Reddit. I really feel like there's more discussion there, just on decks and stuff like that. Like let's make a community out of the parallel
I'd
Reddit.
love
But
to see like a built out Reddit, like
that'd
for
be so
parallel,
Yeah.
cool,
so
right?
people are
In
on
the
there. Yeah.
meantime, Anthrage holding it down.
Yeah,
Uh,
Yes.
he is
Yeah.
definitely
He is.
100%. But someone was asking like, what sites do I use? Like, where do I find good decks and stuff like that? And if you're not already in it, you got to know where to go, for the resources to find
yeah.
competitive decks and
For
stuff.
for what
So
it's worth, parallelstats.com, the priming.xyz, and
yes,
paralink.gg.
Yeah.
Those
absolutely,
are
plug them
3
Tournament
great
website
sites.
too for decks. You can look up. You can
Yes.
just get the decks there.
for sure. All right, y'all. I think that we went a little over. It's a little bit longer, but again, I feel like I could talk to you guys a lot about the design of Parallel for quite some time. So, Mookah, congratulations again on becoming an official designer for Parallel. I'm very proud of you. And Veen, thank you for coming on and offering your wisdom and imparting it on to Mookah as well. We will see you guys in the next episode. Thank you for everyone that listens to the podcast. And we'll see you also at the tournament this upcoming weekend for the second open. Thanks for listening, everyone. Bye.
See ya.
This was a 983 Media Productions podcast.